So Daredevil Season 3 came out just a few weeks back. I've had time to think about it, so today I'm going to stop and rank all the Marvel Netflix villains from the worst to the best. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Sean Chandler, and I started this channel essentially because I was driving everyone around me crazy talking about movies and TV way too much. If you can relate, you're probably in the right place, and consider clicking that subscribe button. As I go into this, I'm not ranking the individual characters because once you take the main characters and henchmen and interesting antagonists, the list would have just been way too long and cumbersome. So instead, I'm talking about each season in the Marvel Netflix universe and all the villains inside of it. So which seasons have the best and worst set of villains. With that said, go ahead and give me your ranking down below in the comment section. You can break it down however you want. You can list as many as you want. I just want to have a nice lively discussion with you down below in the comment section. With that said, let's get started. Coming in last place is Jessica Jones Season 2 with Elisa Jones. Now, I had a number of problems with this season, and that's not really why it comes in last place. It comes in last place because the season doesn't really have a main villain. I mention Elisa Jones because she's kind of antagonistic and causes problems throughout the season, but she's not really a villain, especially as the story plays out, as you learn what's going on. She's kind of a victim of certain circumstances, certainly not someone that has a big villainous plan. As you go through the season, people do bad things. Even some of our good characters have some evil motives and do some things you really don't like. But there's no clear big bad here that we're trying to overcome, just a whole lot of moral ambiguity. So as we're trying to rank the different villains and the villain sets, since there's no clear big bad villain here, you come in last. Coming in at number 10 is The Defenders Against the Hand. Now, this season should have been the Avengers of the Marvel Netflix universe, but it seriously underwhelmed, and almost all of that comes down to the villain set here with the Hand. They brought Sigourney Weaver in as Alexandra, and this should have been amazing casting, but the way she's actually used, her amount of screen time, and the way the character finally plays out, it almost feels like they hired her just to put her in the trailers to get people to watch it, because it just does not pay off at all. From there, they have Elektra in this villainous role, and if she was a true believer, this could have been very interesting, having her face off against Daredevil, but she's not a true believer. It's this resurrected version of her, so it feels hollow as they're facing off against her. And the final payoff with the Hand doesn't make it any more interesting. Swande and Gao should make for this super interesting, complex world of the Hand and all these different subcultures, but the execution itself isn't nearly as interesting as that summary I just gave. At number 9 is Iron Fist Season 1 with the Hand and Harold Meacham. Now, there's a bunch of ideas inside the season that I actually found pretty interesting, in particular regarding Bakudo. This sort of idea that there's a more sympathetic side of the Hand that could draw people in and actually have a bunch of benefits to it is pretty cool. But every time it seemed like they'd introduce these sorts of ideas that I would like, it seemed like they backed off of it. They had to make these characters more villainous than they initially presented them as, which made it more black and white. I enjoyed kind of that gray in the middle, and it added to this complexity to this world of the Hand that they've been establishing up to this point in time. From there, the Harold Meacham stuff just seemed very odd and convoluted to me. The idea that he's been living up in the attic for 10 years, waiting for Danny Rand to come back, living as this resurrected version of himself, and then getting resurrected a second time. It just seemed like an idea that wasn't particularly well thought out, just trying to tie all the elements together in a way that just makes the storyline too complex. A more straightforward version of it would have worked a lot better, where you just have Danny Rand against the Hand. I think that would have paid off better, especially if they'd stuck to some of the complexity of those ideas. Number 8 is Luke Cage Season 1 with Cottonmouth, Diamondback, and more. Now, at the first half of this season, I thought they had a great set of villains and an interesting storyline that they were building. You got Cottonmouth as this club owner that's running this criminal underground that's plagued plagued by Luke Cage trying to set the community straight, with Maria Stokes thrown into the mix as kind of this community leader that has this very seedy, dark side and connection to Cottonmouth. You got Shades as the mysterious guy that gets stuff done. Mix it all together, and it made for this very captivating story where you want Luke Cage to both build the community and set things straight, while at the same time being intrigued and wanting to watch them build this empire that they're working towards. And then Maria Stokes kills Cottonmouth and the whole thing falls apart, and he's replaced with Diamondback, where they go from this interesting criminal empire series to this very hammy comic booky villain that has ties back to Luke Cage that feel really forced. The look, the characterization, everything about all of it just drops in quality drastically. I can't think of too many movies or TV shows where you can pinpoint the exact moment where the whole thing kind of falls apart. If they had stuck to the first half of this season, this might be top 3 for me. Coming in at number 7 is Luke Cage Season 2 with Bushmaster and Maria Stokes. Now, I was hoping going into this season that they'd kind of correct the inconsistency of Season 1, and it kind of does that, but not necessarily in good ways. First off, the relationship between Maria Stokes and Shades, I just thought was awkward, and it made both of them less interesting. I really liked each of them in the first season, but here, the way they're used and utilized and interact with each other, just the magic is gone, and the mystery of Shades is very much eroded when you're seeing him in a dating relationship with Maria Stokes. The saving grace here is Bushmaster, that I both enjoyed the character that they brought into it with this backstory that's kind of compelling, has different layers to it, where you can kind of root for him a little bit, as well as the actor that they brought in. He has a very nice screen presence, both physically, so he's a nice foe to Luke Cage, but also he just kind of has a mesmerizing look to him that I just found him very interesting to watch, and hopefully I can see this actor in more things in the future. Now, the story for the season overall, I thought was just kind of misguided. It didn't seem like it was heading in a direct direction, so I wish they could have given Bushmaster a better story, because I really liked a lot of the things that they were doing with the character as well as the actor that they had. Number 6 is Daredevil Season 2 with the Punisher, the Hand and Nobu. Now, this is a little bit of a tricky one to talk about, because the Punisher's not really a villain inside of the season. He's just antagonistic towards Daredevil, and they butt heads in their ideology, and then obviously they team up towards the end. But in those first 4 episodes, it is Daredevil trying to stop the Punisher, and the Punisher does kind of kidnap Daredevil in him. As the story progresses, you have Colonel Schoenhauer turn out to be one of the villains, and I really enjoyed some of the plot lines with the way he worked into the court sequences and things like that. Where this one loses a little bit of steam is when you do move into the Hand and the Nobu plot line. It just gets very convoluted, very weird, a very gigantic tone shift as you start talking about resurrected ninjas, plot lines along those lines. And while there's some very cool sequences in there where Stick gets kidnapped and has to be rescued, and then of course Daredevil battling ninjas and Frank sniping guys off, there's some cool action sequences, but I'm not actually invested at all in the Hand or Nobu at any point in time inside of this season. So while I enjoyed the season overall, I wish they could have found a way to make the Hand itself a lot more interesting, especially in regards to the fact that you're bringing Elektra in, and it should have been a little bit more captivating. Before I give you my top 5, remember to give me your ranking down below in the comment section. You can break them down however you want if you want to go into the individual characters. I just want to have a nice lively discussion with you down below in the comment section. Also, after this video, check out this playlist up above with my other Marvel Netflix rankings. I've got the seasons, the shows, the heroes, now the villains thrown in there as well. If you enjoyed this video, there's definitely something else in there that you will enjoy. Bringing us into the top 5 is Iron Fist Season 2 with Davos and Mary. Now, this season benefits greatly from having much more streamlined storytelling. Instead of having a bunch of complex different motives and story arcs going on, at the center of it, you have Davos, who has known Danny Rand a long time and who is jealous of him that he got the Iron Fist and feels like he has been betrayed because of the way Danny has chosen to use his powers and his dealings with the Hand. And in doing so, you just have a nice rivalry that runs throughout the entire season. They also shorten the season down a little bit so you can just focus in on this one storyline and have some nice side characters like Mary that with kind of her multiple personalities adding into the mix, who's not really a good guy, not really a bad guy, but just a nice little dynamic thrown into the mix and played wonderfully by Alice Eve. This is a season that is a huge step up from the previous season, largely because they found a way to have a villain that you could understand where he was coming from, a rivalry, and then it had our character Danny Rand have to transform and change who he was, how he decided to treat the Iron Fist in light of our villain. That just made for a very strong season, and it comes down to the villain set. Number 4 is The Punisher with Billy Russo and William Rollins. Now this season featured the Punisher political thriller I never knew that I wanted, and a lot of that comes down to they found a way to kind of build on this mythology of the betrayal of Frank Castle, and all of that coming down to Rollins is kind of the guy in charge of this big conspiracy where they tried to take him out, and Billy Russo as the executioner, the guy that tried to make it happen, that befriends Castle that we think's on our side, that we find out is not, and it just makes for a season where you want to see these guys destroyed by the end of it as they're cutthroat. They turn on each other, as we see towards the end of it where Russo turns Rollins over to let Frank take him out. And so all in all, these are characters that are fun to see on screen. I remember seeing the Rollins character both in the Rambo film as well as in 24. He plays that sniveling kind of bureaucrat character so well. And then of course, in just getting the Billy Russo story as this setup for probably Jigsaw in season 2 works great. So this is one that packs a nice punch and takes the Punisher in a direction that I never knew I wanted. Bringing us into the top 3 is Daredevil Season 1 with Kingpin and the Hand. And now, of course, as an individual villain, the Kingpin is easily the dominant victor inside of the Marvel Netflix universe. And this season establishes that very nicely as this weird, quirky performance, as you would expect from Vincent D'Onofrio, as this complex character that both cares about people, is very broken but very strong, and is working to build this empire. He's these very unique relationships like he has with Wesley, this is kind of his henchman that kind of makes things happen. And all of this just makes for a captivating, compelling season as he's building all of this and building a relationship with Vanessa at the same time. Where it loses a little bit of steam is when it does transition over to the Hand storyline. When ninjas start to show up, you've got awesome, amazing fight scenes, but the story seems to lose focus and go on these rabbit trails that feel very detached from this villain plotline about Wilson Fisk and everything that he's trying to do. So while Kingpin, Wesley, and his gang are awesome, as usual, the Hand kind of holds things back a little bit. Our runner-up is Jessica Jones Season 1 with Killgrave. Now, if Kingpin is the most captivating of the villains, Killgrave is the one that just gets under your skin. You're not rooting for him at all. You hate him and want to see him destroyed. And that's because he's a character that's so perfectly finds a way to be the perfect foil to our lead character of the show in Jessica Jones. As she's this powerful character with incredible strength, him as this character that can take away people's volition, takes all of her power away from her and takes all of her control away and makes her feel vulnerable and weak. And this just makes for such an interesting story that leads to this arc about this character that has PTSD, that's very broken while being very strong. And all of it comes back to this very maniacal, just pure evil character played with just kind of like such flamboyant energy that makes for an interesting character that you like to watch on screen, but you hate him and just want to see him destroyed. But coming in at number 1 is Daredevil Season 3 with the Kingpin and Poindexter. Now, this season is probably the most focused of all the Marvel Netflix seasons, and because it focuses in on the Kingpin as this mastermind. Right from the get-go, he has a master plan not only to get out of prison, not only to take over the city, but also to clear his name and make the people that hurt him pay. And it just is this incredible story that they focused in on it throughout the whole thing as he gets more and more control and leverage over different people. And while you kind of are fascinated and want to see him succeed, you also want to see how is Daredevil going to stop him from what he's doing inside of all this. Along the way, you have Poindexter, this very troubled, broken person that Wilson Fisk manipulates into kind of being his new assassin that's going to frame Daredevil so that he can have his revenge against the person that put him away. And all of this just makes for this captivating story where as it goes along, it gets more and more interesting with better fights, better tension, better drama, all of it focused together. This is the best villain set. This is probably the best season, and so it comes in at number 1. Remember to check out that playlist to the left with my other Marvel Netflix rankings. Thank you guys so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much.